I am here with my friend, Dr. Richard Scott, GP. Hello, Richard.
Andy, good to be here again.
And we talk about all things medical health related. Um, how is you finding working at the moment in the midst of all the stuff around assisted dying, which is hopefully, let's hope it's defeated. Have you found a change in patients and your colleagues as all this stuff has been going on?
To be honest, not yet. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. Yes, like you, I'm praying that it doesn't succeed.
Mm,
But no, not yet. Actually, I'll be honest with you.
fine. Okay, just curious. Right, we got one question for you. Hey, Pure Team. I have a question for the doctor. Why do I keep getting sore legs with muscle pain after running? I often had pain in my legs when I was younger. I often complained of what I would call bent legs. Not sure I called it that. Anyway, I'm guessing that was growing pains. I stretched my legs before and after running. Am I not stretching enough, or am I doing the wrong stretches? Is it just because I'm fit? I'm now regularly running for a few months, or is it just a case of no pain, no gain, and crack on through it?
Well, that's a bit hard to say because really not enough information. I need to know your age, how often are you running, how far are you going, have you stepped it up recently? Good that you're doing the stretches before. By the way, stretches after are more important than stretches before. I learned a good tip from a runner and from physios. I think what I would say in that situation, probably because I haven't really got enough information, I can't lay hands on you myself, is I think you should go and see a physio. And a physio could be a sports physio, even better. But physios are pretty good on these things, and they'll give you a clue whether you're doing too much, doing some things the wrong way, whether you need a bit more rest between times. So I think that would be my suggestion. And don't step it up too far, too fast, too far, too something along those lines. And the other thing is, I'm not here to examine you to know whether your pulses are okay, but make sure that you haven't got any blockage in your arteries. That there are some medical conditions beyond pure sports stuff. But I think the first move would be to go to a physio and get yourself not just checked out, but he or she will give you some exercises which will really help you and give you a pattern of running. That's the other thing.
I do remember many, many years ago, I had a bad back. I went to see a physio through my GP. The physio gave me some specific exercises to fix my back. And they were very, very specific. Hands here, shoulders apart, all the rest of it. This is how far you lift. Anyway, I went back for a review. How are you getting on? Great, I said, but it still hurts a bit different. Show me your exercise. So I showed her and she's like, please don't, please stop. You are going far too far beyond what I asked you to do. You're now overstretching the muscle that we've just got working. And if you carry on, you'll have an opposite problem to try and fix.
We are. Yes. Take advice.
Yes, I was a bit too enthusiastic. The same thing, actually. I was doing some CPR training with some paramedics, and they said, yes, could you be a bit more gentle? We said firm, but you're actually bouncing your palm off the floor through the dummy. That's maybe a little bit too hard. When we said firm, less firm.
Very good.
So there are degrees, aren't there? I think we've answered this one before, but it's a new question. In 1 Timothy 5, verse 23 in the Bible, Paul advises Timothy to drink wine for the sake of his stomach. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's in the Bible, so clearly, therefore, it's a good idea. Wine has some medicinal qualities to it. I know certainly too much wine is very much spoken against these days, and yeah, that's bad for you. But a little bit of wine does have some medicinal qualities, and we don't know what the problem with his stomach was. Whether it's say indigestion. If it was indigestion, then these days we wouldn't necessarily recommend wine. We'd have other treatments. But there was something that in the old days, I guess 2,000 years ago, that the Paul's analysis of the situation must have been such that a little bit of wine would help him. And beyond that, I don't think we can really say because again, a bit like the last question, we don't quite have enough information.
We can't quite do a proper physical workup on someone from 2,000 years ago based
2,000
on
years ago.
a line of a scripture in the Bible. It's a little bit light.
I remember I might have told you the story before, but I remember when I was working briefly with a man in Uganda, wonderful surgeon, sort of best surgeon in Africa, I think, and he was forced to have a bit of red wine because he just developed angina, heart pain, coronary artery narrowing, and he'd been a lifelong teetotaler. But he took wine for the sake of his heart, even though he didn't want to. And again, there are other things you can do, statins and blood pressure medication, etc. But he through gritted teeth He took a little bit of red wine till the day he died, and I might say he lived a good long time afterwards. Whether the wine helped, I don't know. But sometimes a little bit of medicinal wine can help.
On that one, then, just while I'm thinking about it, what would be a little bit of wine for medicine? I mean, how many milliliters would that be?
My friend was, because he didn't like it, and you know, he was taking literally half a small glass, so probably about 100 mils, no more than that. So perhaps that's what Paul was suggesting.
Fine. Well, your bottle of wine will stretch quite a bit if you're taking that smaller dose.
It will,
but it does go off. Wine really does go off.
Does indeed.
Anyway, what have you got for us this evening?
Well, we're talking questions. We had a question last week. Does an apple a day keep the doctor away? And if you remember, my terrible joke, my gut feeling that probably doesn't. But I thought, well, yeah, but you know, we don't rely on gut feelings. That's what science is for. Right, well, I better go and look it up. So that's what I've done, and I've come up with an unusual answer. So should we fire away?
Yes, please. I'm fascinated more than I was before.
So my thought initially was, well, we know that fruit is generally good for us. I doubt an apple is any better than any other fruit. But what does the science say? So I looked it up, and the first thing is, what did the actual saying actually say? So in the 19th century, there was an English proverb which started off just a little differently, and I actually prefer it, the real word. So I wrote it down. Eat an apple on going to bed, and you'll keep the doctor from earning his bread. So that was suggesting that, yeah, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Of course, in those days, doctors needed patients to be ill, otherwise they didn't get paid. So, but eat an apple on going to bed, and you'll keep the doctor from earning his bread. So, okay, it sounds obvious. Fruit's good, apples therefore good. But is there anything specific or particular about apples? Is there any truth in the saying? Now, there wasn't much I could find, but in 2013, there was a study rather nicely comparing eating apples with taking statins to reduce the bad cholesterol, the LDL cholesterol, which is, of course, an important factor in cardiovascular disease. So apples versus statins. And they had a similar effect. Of course, apples had less side effects. And interestingly, the price was similar. So if you like it, in that 2013 study, apples were equivalent to taking a drug. So yes, it's good for us, because certainly statins are good for heart disease. But a 2015 study didn't quite agree. But what it said was this. It agreed that eating apples, those people who ate apples regularly needed less doctors and therefore less treatment. But the socio-demographics, the people who were in the study were slightly different. The apple eaters were slightly different from other people. Perhaps they were a bit more healthily motivated anyway. But they did find in the United States that those who ate an apple a day, only a small fraction of people, but those were the ones who were studied, did indeed need or use less medication. So in a sense, I think that shows that the science is backing the 19th century proverb. So I thought next, let's look what's actually in an apple. So I'll ask Andy this. What's the proportion of water in an apple? Apples are juicy. How much water have they got?
You see, well, I would have said more like 90%.
Very good. We'll stop there. Close. 86.
Oh,
very good. 86. And the other 14 are carbohydrates. And there's not much else. But what there is else makes a difference, because there are some very helpful things. There's a little fiber. And within the fiber is a thing called pectin. And pectin is the chap that lowers cholesterol. And there's also not only a tiny amount of vitamins, but some antioxidants, which are good against inflammation and disease like cancer. Which is why eating an apple a day does tend to reduce cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and cancer. So if one a day is good, what about more than one a day? So here's a nice thing. This is a nice thing from the computer. What happens if you only eat apples for a week? And the answer was you lose weight. That's not enough. The best is 1 to 2 a day. If you eat too many, you can get a bit of acidic, can affect give you a bit of indigestion. So 1 or 2 a day, but it does seem to be good for you. Are apples any better than other fruits? Are they the best fruit? Well, no. Blueberries are especially good. They also contain antioxidants, fighting disease. Avocados, high in healthy fats and nutrients. But apples not only help cardiovascular, diabetes and cancer, but they are anti-inflammatory, good in respiratory conditions. They reduce obesity, good for your teeth and gums. You mentioned be careful if you're on blood thinners with eating the skin of an apple, it can make a hole in your gum. But overall, they are good for your teeth and gums. They're good for your immune system and even help you sleep if taken before bed. So I think they're a good guy. What about different types of apples? Of course, we have the different apples, red delicious, pink ladies, different skin colors. Well, the different colored skins have different amounts of a thing called flavonoids, which are the antioxidants. So yeah, the red delicious and pink ladies particularly good. Granny Smiths are low in sugar, high in fiber. Apples overall are good. There's a little bit of difference between them. So I think, taking everything into account, I reckon the Victorians were right. An apple a day does keep the doctor away. And anything that keeps the doctor away, I can tell you, is a good thing. So thank you. I think it was Peter who asked that particular question. Thank you for asking a question that I had to look up. And yeah, sometimes the science stirs up a few surprises. I thought the answer was going to be no, but in fact, it's yes.
I was definitely surprised by statins, which I don't know much about other than I know of them for cholesterol. Just really simply, what is a statin? Then what is that actually doing that the apple is also doing, but not medically?
It's a chemical that literally reduces cholesterol in our blood. So it affects the way the body deals with the cholesterol in the liver. There's two types of cholesterol. That the HDL, the high density lipoprotein, is a good guy. So what you want ultimately is a sort of higher HDL and a lower LDL. And it seems that apples can reduce your LDL cholesterol. So very good. I think if someone's got serious heart disease and they need a statin, I wouldn't be saying don't take a statin, but I might say, well, yeah, have an apple as well. Why not?
Yeah.
Evidence seems to favour it. It's not either or.
I know I've said this before, but it seems to be relevant because you were saying about too many apples. I do remember a couple who many years ago were buying their fruit in a market, and they'd got the advice from the doctor, you need to lose weight, you need to eat more fruit and veg. But the problem was they took that to mean eat an awful lot more fruit, didn't like vegetables, and so they were buying all this. I mean, I was just shocked at how much fruit they had, and the guy at the fruit said, well, this is what they buy every week. But they got massively fat because, of course, fruit has got lots of sugar in it.
Absolutely. I always remember the story. In fact, I saw a picture of a lady who I think knew that carrots were good because they help you see in the dark. So she had a pretty well, uniquely carrot diet, eating in vast quantities. Well, carrots also, they contain what makes them oranges, carotenoids, and it actually literally made her skin go orange. You can overdo these things. A bit like Andy with the pummeling the poor CPR doll. Go easy. Good in small quantities aren't necessarily good. Bit of alcohol in large quantities.
Yeah. Yes. No, I was. They didn't make fun of me with the CPR doll, but they did point out that we want a little bit of compression. But if your farm is bouncing off the floor, that's too much.
I think it's when you walk in the room and the doll starts yelling, "No!"
Yeah, well, there is that.
Anyone but Andy.
Yeah, please not him. I mean, hey, stop. Like they said, I'm definitely massaging the heart, but I might have destroyed it at that point. Yeah. Right, fiber. Now, pectins, I've heard of those as well. Is that another drug, or am I mishearing?
No, it's a natural substance.
Okay.
Within fiber. Mm.
So you're saying blueberries, very, very good. Avocado, very popular.
Could have mentioned other fruits, but those are the ones that particularly came up when I looked up, which fruits are particularly good for you. I think everybody knows that blueberries are good. I think they're just a little bit boring, dare I say. But I'll eat them if they're there. I don't think they're particularly exciting. Little kids love them. My grandchildren love blueberries, but they do seem to be good guys in terms of things like antioxidants.
Yep, and they stain things. I remember when we do carrot soup. If I can get cheap carrots, I'll get a big bag. We'll chop it, peel it, and you do have orange hands for a while.
Yes, things can stain.
Yes, exactly, they can. And the other thing that you said was a couple of apples a day, or you could get acid. I would never have thought of an apple creating an issue of acid.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as bad, I think, as citrus fruits will certainly bring on indigestion. But there's enough in there to irritate your stomach if you have too much. So again, just go gently.
It's that moderation thing that it doesn't matter what topic we've covered. We always come back to one of the same things: is don't have too much of anything, have lots of little bits of everything.
Yeah. Apart from God, you can't get too much of God.
No, obviously not, because that's good.
But in terms of food and drink, it's medicine. You have a dose of medicine. You don't have too much because it can harm you. Too little won't do the job.
I'd tell you something. We had a chat in the family about what the Bible says about foods, because there are some foods, and I do remember that one on wine, little wine. But of course, you've got milk and honey. We've covered milk, my favourite session ever. That was very good. But honey, of course, because here's one for you. Stephen said to me the other day, honey doesn't go off.
Yeah, the honey is an amazing substance. Now, we used to, I think I might have mentioned this on the show before, but when we were in Africa, we used to send people out into the forest to go and literally steal the honey from honeycombs from the bees, and they would bring it back in 25 kilo sections. I would buy it for the hospital, and we would apply it to leg ulcers, horrible tropical ulcers, which were defying antibiotics. You put honey on them, it's got natural enzymes which suck the water out of the bugs. So not only does it zap the bugs because of chemicals, but it actually draws water out of the bugs and kills them. So you put honey on wounds, they heal a lot faster than with antibiotics. And actually, we've learned that more recently in England. So sometimes honey is applied to wounds in England. But yeah, it doesn't go off. It's so sweet and natural enzymes, it doesn't go off. Very clever stuff.
I love how nature, God's design, so frequently has given us the basics of so much. I think, is it the willow tree was some form of paracetamol type?
Absolutely. It is amazing. I always think, the other thing is, he makes bees. Now, bees in a lifetime make less than half a teaspoon per bee. So they work incredibly hard. But of course, that's why they work in their tens of thousands together, because each bee individually does so little. But actually, it's working. That's harsh. Doesn't do so little. It does as much as it can do. It just is little by our standards. But put together, what an amazing creation they are.
It just astounds me. I mean, the humble apple. Who'd have thought the humble apple can rival 2013 study can rival chemically created statins or an apple?
Absolutely. And if people say to me, I can't take a statin, and I get this in clinic because not everyone's tolerant to statins. Well, I know where to point them now.
Sometimes we have these conversations and I'm very excited or very educated, and sometimes I'm just utterly astounded by the humble apple being such an amazing thing that God has given us.
His provision. Funnily enough, he knew what he was doing.
Yes, if only we would trust him more.
Amen.
Right. If you've got any questions for Richard or any thoughts on apples, you can send them back to us. Not the apples, just the questions. You can email us hello@pure247radio.org. Hello@pure247radio.org. Ask your questions to Dr. Richard Scott, who also, of course, is in the magazine Pure Media, the magazine. You have your column there too.
Thank you. And I was just saying to Andy before we went on air, this is a terrific magazine. We remember the wonderful Steve Legg and Sorted magazine. Steve has passed to glory. This is the successor to Sorted magazine, and I would recommend buy it and show your friends.
Richard, thank you. Until next week for more. Bye for now.
Bless you, mate. Bye.
Here at Pure 24/7 Radio, we have had the privilege of speaking to some amazing people with amazing stories.
Now, what about, I thought I'd go a bit further, what about goat and sheep's milk? Becoming quite popular. Very similar to cow's milk. So we don't use it in the first year of life, you can afterwards. And their nutrient profiles, how good they are, is pretty similar to cow's milk. Allergenicity, how often do they cause allergies? About the same. They're a bit more expensive sometimes. It's pretty equivalent.
Yeah, we're really excited, especially excited for Josh because it's his first book and he's really passionate with that Gen. Do you say Gen Z or Gen Z? I've heard it said in
I don't know. I'm too old. I don't know.
Yeah, we're not in that age category, so we've not got a clue what they're called.
It's a pot boiler. It's a good, exciting popcorn thriller. I didn't think it was anything too special, but I think watching it at home, people will probably enjoy it more than I did going to the cinema to see it. Really good film.
I love it. I walk into a cinema and I turn my phone off. Nobody can get hold of me for a couple of hours. I'm in a completely other world. Every single time I go to the cinema, and for me it's like going to Oz. It's like going to another world and escaping and relaxing, and I thoroughly enjoy it.
If you have missed any of these interviews or would like to hear them again, you can. Simply head over to our catch-up section at www.pure247radio.org. That's www.pure247radio.org.